Hi, Shemai, Sitachi, Croeso, Chris, Dowie, what is cracking, ladies, gents, boys, girls, anybody who just so happens to be anybody. Today we are talking about Fighting Fantasies Spellbreaker. So this bad boy is book number 53, published back in 93 for the Puffin series, and then it is book number 28, published back in 2007. And it is worth noting that this book was written by Jonathan Green. Now this is worth noting because sort of like Pepsi and Coca-Cola, they're more or less the same thing, but there's a difference. There's a noticeable difference between Jonathan Green's writing and then maybe Steve Jackson or Ian Livingstone's. Jonathan Green in this book in particular seems to be more wordy. He writes a lot more, especially on the paths that you should be taking opposed to maybe the paths that you should not be taking. It's sort of noticeable. So before we get into the video, before we get into discussing the book, let's look at the cover so we can say it's done and dusted. So we look at the Puffin cover and what do we see? And now the Puffin cover in my opinion is a bit goofy, but it is very retro. We got some sort of chaos demon. We got the guy, he's a warlock, he is. What is this bad boy's name? It's something really weird. I say weird, it's sort of like Razak from the Crypt of the Sorcerer. His name is Nazak. He's a warlock, and I do believe you sort of bump into him right at the start of the book, and it sets you up to get the story going. The cover, it's I'm gonna say it's one of the weaker ones, not gonna lie. I'm not really enjoying the cover. It's a bit silly, it's a bit creepy, but it is actually a scene towards the end of the book. You got the Black Grimoire in this guy's hands. You got this weird looking demon. It is what it is. He's opened up the, I don't know, crypt or something. It's got Casket of Shadows. He's opened that bad boy up, and that's what we're looking at. But what do we get when we look at the Wizards cover? Now the Wizards cover honestly looks really cool. I think it's more or less the same thing. I think it's meant to be the Crypt of Shadows with the demon coming out. You can't see the warlock. I can't see him on the cover. Is that him? Or was that like a little statue? I don't know. The cover's really cool. I got the book in my hand, but I really like this cover. It looks like a Magic the Gathering card or something. It's awesome. It is amazing. It is metal. I do actually love the Wizards cover for this one. So, you know, I think it goes without saying, if we had to put these in order, Wizards would win hands down, coming in first, and then Puffin coming in second. So per usual, you flip the book over, you read the back, what does it say? And it says, "The beast is loose. Racine Abbey has guarded its arcane treasures for centuries, but when their Black Grimoire is stolen, the land of Ruddlestone is plunged into a crisis of epic proportions. For the ancient book holds the key to the legendary Casket of Shadows, and the evil imprisoned within it. Should it be opened, the infernal beast will be unleashed to wreak its terrible carnage across the old world. On the night of Shaka's moon, scant days away, this will surely come to pass, unless, that is, one brave hero can retrieve the Black Grimoire in the nick of time. A hero like you." And like I said, Jonathan Green's work feels a lot different. Well, it feels a little bit different. There's something noticeably different between Jonathan Green's work and maybe Steve Jackson's or even Livingstone's. If you got any books nearby, flip them over, read the back of them. You could tell there's a difference in writing. It feels like Jonathan Green is a bit wordier, whereas Ian Livingstone, Steve Jackson, a bit more to the point. But the back does summarize the story pretty well. So the adventure starts off with you sort of in the wilderness. You find a campfire, you go over, there's a bloke there. He's friendly, or so you think. You take him over to the Abbey. He needs to be invited in, lo and behold. So you do that, just trying to be nice. He comes in, steals the Black Grimoire, and you're thrust into the whole adventure. And your very first encounter is a Brimstone demon. Now this fight is actually pretty tough, straight off the bat. So it's one of them things, you know, you might actually get your butt handed to you as soon as you start the adventure, which is always a nice little start. But if you survive, you get to enjoy a nice little mince around the Abbey once they sort of pull you in, they heal your wounds, and they just tell you, well, this is your fault, you've got to sort it out. And that's exactly what you do. So you go out to the Abbey, you have a mince around, you buy some herbs, and you're on your way. And you stop off at a bunch of little, and I'm going to be honest, they sound like British towns. You stop off at a bunch of British towns, and you sort of do your own thing. What you're going to find out is you need a lot of herbs in this one, and you don't actually know which herbs you need. On top of that, you're going to find out you've got an infection score, similar to the poison score in Curse of the Mummy. you know, Jonathan Green tends to add these sort of like additional scores that you need to manage. You know, Bloodbones had time, Curse of the Mummy had a poison score, this one has an infection score. The infection score is sort of like picked up and then just dropped after like the three quarters sort of point. You don't really have to worry about it after that point. But it is interesting. But like I said, you go from British town to British town, just sort of doing quests, and it sounds fun. It sort of sounds like you're playing maybe like an online RPG. Maybe not even an online RPG, maybe like Skyrim, you know, the gameplay in the background. But it gets old really, really quickly. And it sort of gets old because it's predictable, and not all of these quests feel as rewarding and as fun as they could be. You know, there's a quest where you have to save like a plague-ridden village. That was pretty fun. I did actually enjoy that one. But then you got like weird quests. Well, I say weird. They're just kind of middle of the road, kind of boring, kind of like they hold your interest but barely. But that said, it's going to be the same in any roleplay game you actually play. Take The Witcher for example. Not every quest is fun, and that's what you're going to find in this book. This book plays out very much like a video game, in the sense that yeah, you've got a lot that you could do, but not all of it feels good. And oh my days, how have I forgotten? You've also got a faith score, because obviously this takes place in an abbey. Well, you start off in an abbey and there's lots of demons. You have a faith score. Now you get more faith by being good, by being faithful, but this score's really handy to fend off demons and the undead. And what you're going to find out is there's going to be points in the story where if you haven't got a certain amount of faith, then you just get game overed, or you're prevented from finishing the story. And it's sort of, it is bittersweet, but I don't know, it's sort of there, you know. It's a nice little addition, like having like maybe like a Holy Crusade kind of adventure, but it's one of those things that's like, oof, it's another score to mediate. But it's nice, it's interesting. That's one thing I can give Jonathan Green, is that he does add interesting things to his books, but you know, it might not be for everyone. The book, however, does play out like a nice little romp through the British countryside. It is nice. It's okay, you know. You got Riddlestone, which is a very British sounding name, and I say that purely because I know there's a British ale called Riddles, and it's so weak it might as well be an alcopop. But it's nice, it feels heartwarming, it's wholesome, and it feels traditional. That said, there are going to be difficult encounters in this book, and there's a few instances where you have to maybe fail a luck check, or you fail a check to get a key item. Without that key item you can't progress, and it feels a bit weird, it feels a bit unnecessary. Now, looking on the Fighting Fantasy Wikia, apparently it was done. Is it the Wikia? I don't know. I read it online. Apparently it was done to stop cheating, but it's weird. Like, why put them checks in there? And something interesting as well with the Puffin version, that was noticeably harder compared to the Wizards version. Apparently the Wizards version was made a lot easier, especially with the stamina scores for a lot of the creatures, because a lot of the creatures, well, the Brimstone Demon, what are his stats? Let me just flick to it. What has he got? He's got a skill of 8 and a stamina of 9. He packs a punch. I'm assuming it was a bit higher in the original Puffin version. But for your very first encounter, you don't really want to be fighting something that's a bit of like a pseudo boss kind of thing. And it's sort of like, it's interesting, it's nice, it's new, it's interesting to do. Maybe I should have bought, well, I don't know if I wanted to be gouged for a Puffin version. But it would be certainly interesting to see how the skills vary between the Puffin and the Wizards versions. But like I said, there is a noticeable jump in difficulty at times in this book. But that said, it's nice. I suppose it's a challenge, and if you want to do it in a like a D&D one-shot kind of way, where you modify the rules, it provides something to do. So in summary, I did actually enjoy this book. I gave it a solid 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I would personally recommend it to you if you can get it for a decent, reasonable price. But we're looking at eBay over here, yeah, that's quite difficult. This one does feel more like a video game compared to an adventure game book, which sounds silly, but if you read the book yourself, you'll understand how. And personally, I do prefer Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson's writing to Green's. But that said, this is a fun little romp through the British countryside, slaying demons and trying to stop some sort of apocalypse. It's fantastic and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So next week's video is going to be Howl of the Werewolf. Now this is going to be the last book in the Wizard series. I don't really know what I'm going to do after Howl of the Werewolf, but it's going to be a great video, hopefully. So I'm hoping to see you there. If you want to like, comment and subscribe, feel free to do so. and I'm hoping I'm going to see you here next Thursday. So without further ado, take care.